Hi, everyone. Welcome. Happy Monday. It's a little bit cloudy over here in New York. Welcome to the Brooklyn Rail's 675th New Social Environment. I'm Eleanor, a Programs Associate here at the Rail, and I have the pleasure and privilege of being your MC today for a conversation featuring Sarah Margnetti and Chloe Stagaman. We are also thrilled to welcome poet Ariel Yelen here to close today's program. Before we get started, the Brooklyn Rail acknowledges that Black Lives Matter, and here in New York, we are on Lenape-Hogan, the unceded land and waters of the Wappinger, Canarsie, Muncie, and Lenni Lenape people of the Delaware Nation and the Shinnecock Indian Nation. We recognize land acknowledgements are not a replacement for actual and necessary decolonial work, but a reminder of place and of the legacies of dispossession and enslavement that sustain and enrich the land we are speaking from. And now to introduce today's guest and host. Based in Brussels, Sarah Margnetti holds a master's in visual art from Geneva University of Art and Design. Selected solo and two-person shows include Flowers Don't Pick Themselves and Tropes with Charlotte Herzig, among others. Margnetti also has a solo museum exhibition Supportive Structures at Musée Cantonal de Beaux Arts in Lausanne on view through April 2023. And Chloe Stagaman is a curator working with artists in public spaces. She's most recently held stints as a public art curator in the UK, and before that as an international public programs manager for the Van Allen Institute, a nonprofit for urban design in New York. And she is, of course, the director of programs here at the Rail. I'm really happy to have you both here today and excited to pass it over to you, Chloe.
Thanks, Eleanor, so much for that introduction. I'm really lucky to work with such an amazing team at the Rail. So thanks to everyone at the Rail. And thank you, Sarah, for joining me today for a conversation about this amazing show here in New York, Dovetail, which is currently on view at Margot Samel through December 3rd. And I want to jump in right away because there's so much to discuss between this current exhibition of murals and paintings on canvas in New York and your museum exhibition, which is currently on view at Musée Cantonal des Beaux Arts in Lausanne, which is called Supportive Structures. So maybe we can start the slides, Eleanor, and get a work up on screen. So I want to begin with the recurring image of the curtain in your work, Sarah. What does the curtain represent architecturally to you as, for example, a counterpoint to the permanence or solidity of a wall? And what does the curtain represent politically in relationship to your ongoing explorations of gender and selfhood? And it felt like a very good place to start because I guess we're peeling back the curtain into you and into your practice as an artist.
Yes. So yeah, I was using this motif of the curtain a lot. I paint it on canvases, but I also did pieces that were real curtains. And I really affectionate this motif because for me it's really this membrane that stands between the inside and the outside. And it's a kind of protection. It's fragile and porous, but I really like to play with that because sometimes you cannot see something, but you can imagine what happens beside. And so if it's an image, you can imagine what happens on the other side. But if it's a real curtain, you can also hear or you have other senses that are that you can and I like that the fact that it can be really intriguing, and so I play a lot with this motif, and I really like the fact that it's can have very lavish effects, and I I play with those effects and shape them in also body parts sometimes. So there's this play with body parts appearing from behind, but the curtain becomes also a kind of body and takes his body autonomy. So sometimes, I did curtains that were shaped of breasts or buttocks, and when they've been opened, it's a kind of invitation inside, or take a look outside. I also like that the curtain is an element of also stage, like it's theater curtain, and it can really mark a temporality. There's a rhythm before, during, and after in this temporality. And I saw a link also with my mural paintings, where I was painting a lot of curtains, and I really saw those murals are elements in time that would always disappear after the show. So there was also this temporality of before, during, and after, and so maybe after is just the painting erased and still being here under the layers of paint.
Yeah, and if you go to the next slide, Eleanor, there's another example of the curtain recurring here. And I wonder also if the curtain, I like what you said about the theatricality of the curtain, especially as it relates to the cultural and social stories we tell through theater, and kind of how those play into the work as well. And if you go to the next slide, Eleanor, there's a curtain hideout, where there's actually a physical curtain in the space. And how do you, when you're making these curtains, or when you made this curtain in particular, how were you thinking about the curtain in relationship to the space it was in, or to the purpose it had in that room?
This curtain is what I was saying before. It's a curtain that takes shapes of a body, so we can see like two hands lurking, trying to open the curtain, and then it creates some foldings, and it's a buttock. And I like this circle of sewing a curtain, but inside the curtain there's another curtain.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's a body, and it's touched by other bodies, and related. Maybe I don't know if I answered your question, but
you did. And it's interesting how the curtain kind of recurs, but also gets back to a few themes that thread in your work that would be interesting to hear you speak to, which is how the curtain creates a space of intimacy and allows for conversation where maybe there wasn't conversation before, but also how the curtain allows for what Camila Paulino wrote about, which is in an essay about your work, which is allows for the senses to kind of permeate it. Wherever there's a curtain, you can still hear what's behind it, and you can still look in, or there's a temptation to open it. And so how does that create or relate to the questions that you ask as an artist about femininity, about gender, about selfhood, and about creating community between people on issues in society and in life?
Yes, so there's this idea of revealing something, but if there's the idea of revealing is because something was hidden behind. So we can see, for example, in this painting Symphony I did in Lausanne, there's a group of people behind the curtain. And so I've been working on few paintings that spoke about, yeah, those idea of meeting in group, and can be applied, for example, for non-mixed groups meeting, where people would probably share experiences, common experiences, but it's a time of reflection and sharing, and then coming out with a shared reflection and kind of yeah reflection that people have together, and that was a bit of my idea.
And what about your own role in those reflections? Because I know you've participated in oral histories and various events where people have come together to transcribe and to discuss and to self-actualize. And how do those impact your practice and how you think about these curtains and that interior world and exterior world?
But for those projects, I designed and sew the curtains, so I was really building the surroundings to hide or permit those meetings, and I was also taking part in them. And my role, then after that, it really inspired new paintings, because living those kind of reunions and experiencing them made me want to speak about it. And so it inspired a lot of other paintings. So from behind curtains, I just came out with other images to speak about those kind of experiences. So probably the paintings with the nails, I did paintings with nails, with intertwined nails, and it was maybe an image of those meetings.
Amazing. Well, maybe we'll move to the next sort of recurring visual in your work, which is the caryatid. And I think the caryatid is also a really interesting access point in your work. Camila Paulino wrote that the caryatid holds this sort of dual meaning in your work. It speaks to the pressures to uphold domestic life, as well as to these unseen support forces whose labor sustains the world of art and culture. And so in my mind, it sort of critiques institutions, but it also speaks to unspoken systems of support. How do you think about the caryatid when you're working with it as subject matter in your paintings? And in some ways, it can be humorous sometimes, the way you kind of insert bodily forms into these structures, but then also quite critical as well, and revelatory. And so I'm hoping you can speak a bit to that. And there are a few works after this in supportive structures that incorporate the caryatid.
Yes, yeah, I've been working a lot with those caryatids, and so first I see them as silent and essential pillars, and they are always beauty and calm, and the history of caryatids is a bit violent in the beginning, because I think it's during the first century before Christ. There was a conflict, a war between Greece and Persia, and I will not make you a history course, but there was a history of treachery, and the Greece. There was a history of treachery, and they punished the carriers, which is a people from Persia, I think, and so they killed all the men, and they took the woman in slavery, and to remember this occasion, the women were forever depicted as suffering under a burden, and they put them like this as pillars forever. And this is really a sad story, but I think this image for me of the caryatid is reveals a lot, yes, this silent and quiet, really essential work in a way, because if the pillar is taken away, the building collapses. So yeah,
Eleanor, if you go to the next slide, you can see some of the works that you're talking about. There we go.
Yeah. For example, this, yes, so I work a lot with my own body. I take pictures of my own body. And for example, well, for this picture, it's me supporting me. I'm the shoes and I'm also the legs. So yeah, this, I don't know how to continue this, but oh yeah, the caryatids now for me can represent all kind of essentials and invisible workers. It could be in the art world or even in shops or wherever. We were speaking a lot about essential workers during COVID. So it also, for me, it's also related to those kinds of topics.
And what about the title? If you go back, Eleanor, what about the title of this work? How did you come upon that title?
I came with this title. This was, yeah, it's related to how you how you feel, or how you, yeah, let me see your work. You walk here. It's a bit. Oh, is it a painful walk? I don't really remember how I came out with this title, but I take a lot of inspiration in songs sometimes, and this was coming from a song. But yeah.
I think if we move, there are a few more examples of the caryatid as you move through, and these are all from the show in Lausanne, Supportive Structures. And can you speak a bit to how these body parts that sort of appear within the structure of the caryatid, and how those two are in conversation always in your work? Both the body parts sort of signaling the senses and signaling acts of listening, acts of paying attention, creating questions, and then relating the body to these institutional forms and to these architectural forms as well.
Yes, so the body parts, it's really this fragmentation of body. For me, it's also a kind of metaphor for deconstruction, and yeah, the critical analysis of power structures. So, for example, yeah, those caryatids. Is your question related to the fragmentation and the ear? Okay. Yeah. So yeah, there is this ear motif that I really took from those fragmentations, because first I was really focused on the face and senses, so hearing, smelling, or talking, or seeing. And I really took this ear motif because for me it was the best metaphor for listening, but the ear is a hole in the body, and it's a passive hole. And I was really into those plays of between inside and outside with the curtain. So with the ear, it was another, because the curtain is also related to windows, and the window is can be an eye or an ear of a house. So then I was also really attracted to this ear motif. And in the ear, there's ear is related to hearing and listening, but there's also is also linked to equilibrium, because inside the ear there's an organ that is related to the sense of equilibrium. And so there's a lot of gymnastic in my work sometimes. I'm also sometimes a bit lost, because it's circles that are made of reflections, and that brings me to a metaphor and then another metaphor, and sometimes it's a ping pong game.
There's something quite improvisational about it as well. When we were speaking earlier, we were talking about how you often paint murals in your work that are site specific and temporary. And in this space, I know they had told you a story about the doors, and I'm wondering if you can share that with us as well, and sort of how you came to paint on the doors and think about the doors as a site for work as well.
Yes, so I do a lot of my wall paintings are mainly, I think about them before coming to the space, but I don't do plans, and I really like to feel really the space before deciding really what I want to do. And so this I did 3 murals in the Lausanne exhibition that are all related to ears. And so the story is that you can see a big door in the wall. There's a huge door in the wall, and that was really annoying to hang the paintings, because there was this huge door, and suddenly I saw that, I could just paint a door actually on it. And this made the thing, and I decided to put 3 doors on every corner of the space. And so with this, also this idea of the ear came because I invited someone also to do a performance in the space, and it's Giulia Perrazzini. She's a comedian, and she lost the hearing of one ear, and so she's really speaking about recovering the hearing sense. And so I planned the wall paintings thinking about this performance, and also that's why the motif of the ear is very present there. But it's also they are all doors also, so that could be open, that you can activate.
What do you feel the ear is the door to, symbolically? I know that's a big question, but what is it the door to for you, at least in your work with it and in your repetition of it throughout your work?
It's, for me, it's for mutual listening is the key to probably a better world. It's very big words, but I think that it's really important in the world we live in. We should be listening more, because also listening is an active, it's active, and hearing it's really passive. And I think that, yeah, we should be more active. I speak from my position, but yeah.
I feel like you made the work in this exhibition, which we've been looking at, and the works that are on view in New York, which we're going to get to really soon, at the same time. And I wonder if at this point you can tell us a little bit about how you separated the works, and when you were making this body of work, it felt like a one train of thought, but then they sort of did branch off and become two distinct exhibitions.
Yes. So first, yeah, I wanted to start everything together and then separate, but it was not really possible to work like this. And so yeah, sorry. Sorry, there's a cat and it needs to go. Okay. Yeah, I wanted to, for all the works I was going to paint for the both exhibition, I wanted to do again a lot of different themes I was exploring with murals, because as I was saying, those murals most of the time have been erased, and I don't have a permanent remain of those murals. So that was the occasion to probably rework all those paintings. And then, oops, I hope you can hear me, because my connection is not very good.
We can
Okay.
hear you. Yeah.
And so I think for the Lausanne works, it started to appear that it was more related to, there's a lot of paintings that are related to groups of people, and also looking from inside to outside. So there's windows, but that you can see the sky, and also all those doors that are closed or quite a little bit open. And for the so I started to work on those topics. And for New York, I was very inspired by the floor, because there's a wooden floor that is really, really present. It's really yellow. And I started working with this idea of the wood, because I'm very, yeah, I really love to paint wood, actually. And so, yeah, I based the exhibition on floor, and even you can see there's two green paintings, and I took this idea of the green from my studio floor, because there's a part of my studio who's green. So this exhibition is more, it's just personal, but it's more related to floors. And then I realized that the paintings most of them can be seen from above. There's a bit of, yeah, you can see the paintings of the hands are views from above, and the puzzle can be too, and the marble. And so there was a kind of elevation, maybe, and with those caryatids that are holding hands, there's also this elevation, because they are supporting each other, but with arms right above their heads. So yes, there was those, maybe in the two exhibition, it's maybe a question of different point of views. And
and different spaces as well, very different spaces. I loved what you were saying about the wood, and I'm wondering if you can elaborate a little bit on what wood as a material means to you personally, both as a person and, within your family, but then also what you feel the wood achieves in speaking to architecture, but also to porosity and to listening and, everything we've been discussing thus far as a material.
Yeah, well, so wood is for me it's a very warm material, also because it's organic and can create, also if you burn it, you can create warm, but it's also related to the body, because when we speak about wood, we use some similar words like veins or heart. And there's this quality also of, when I paint it, it's a lot of different layers of glazing, and there's some deepness in it. When you look at skin, you can see your veins. And there's also this idea of temporality, because in wood every vein is a year that pass. So I've been told a lot about wood with my father and grandfather, but so yeah, I think it's a nice knowledge to have, and it actually helps me to be better at reproducing wood. Yeah.
And what about you talked about the incorporation of yourself into the works. I know that some of the hands and, body parts in the works are also photographs of your friends. How do you navigate that? And how do you navigate the autobiographical dimension of the work, if there is one? How do you think about it in relationship to yourself?
Yeah, so I started painting my body because it was just out of commodity, because I needed like body parts or different positions, or yeah, mainly that. And so I started, first I was using pictures from internet, and then I was thinking, yeah, it's better if I use my own body. And then it made me realize that I was kind of self-portraiting. And so I started to think about that, and yeah, the fact that, why would I represent myself? What does it mean? And so yeah, it's a lot of, I have a lot of different concerns, and it's always yeah, that's why I'm the center of my concerns, in a way that I'm the one who thinks about what I think. And I put my body here, but I started to use the body of other people, because I was also thinking, oh, does it represent to have his own body in a painting? And so that's why I wanted to ask also other people. For example, I did in the show in Dovetail, it's all hands of different friends that I depicted, the other green painting. And I always ask them, yeah, it's anonymous probably, but for me it has a meaning. It's always, I don't know, fellow artists or person that I really like the work. Maybe they are activists or theoreticians, or yeah. I always try to find a personal sense of why I would gather those people together, even if they know each other or not. But yeah, for me, it's important to know whose hands or whose nose or whose ear is it.
Yeah, and I think I'm wondering if you can speak as well to the works that we're looking at right now, which are a diptych. They kind of they sit side by side in the gallery. The first one that we just were looking at is so interesting, how the nails sort of go up to fix this hole in the weaving pattern, and become sort of this powerful tool to fix that hole. And then if you move to the next one, the nails become a source of unity between the hands and the canvas, become a way for them to weave together. I wonder if you can speak to the story behind these works and what you were aiming to get across with them as well.
Yes, so the work with the two hands is my hands actually, and so it's the hands of just one person. And yeah, this idea of the nails are a part of your body that actually as also your hair, you can choose to grow, and and you can do something with it. So weaving this canage, I don't know how you say it in English, but and so the second image with the hands of different other people is reproducing also the motifs of the weaving that you can see in the other painting. Maybe it's not obvious, but I should have maybe painted more nails to reproduce maybe a bigger part of the motif, but for me the idea was this. And maybe it's a kind of we can, it's maybe easier to fill a hole with several people than alone. Yeah, I don't know, it speaks about links in between people, but also building things together. And yeah.
In an essay about the word, Camille Paulino wrote that you're kind of cautious when it comes to the word care, or thinking about care. And I wonder if you could talk a bit about that, because I feel like a lot of the works at least approach the idea of tenderness, or approach the idea of being open, listening at the door, paying attention, asking questions, opening holes where there aren't any. And so how do you walk around that idea of care? Or how do you think about it in relationship to the paintings and to the work?
When I was saying that I was cautious about the use of this word care, it's because it has become such commodification, I think, and a lot of people speak about care, and they, so that was a bit, how can I say? This is why I didn't want it to have a huge part of the text that would speak about care. But for sure, care it's really important, but it's also really probably misused sometimes. But I like that you used the word tenderness, because I think I try to figure that a lot. Tenderness with different, mainly hand gestures, I would say. For example, in the puzzle painting that I did for Dovetail, which is called Alone Together. And there's this idea of care and tenderness and listening. It's all, I think it's a big mix that is needed. Yeah.
Yeah, and I wonder, I mean, since we're here at Alone Together, I think especially in Dovetail, there's a recurring use of building blocks or pieces of things. And, it goes back to fragmentation, breaking apart body parts, but here it feels both the obvious connection to architecture, to building blocks of the world we live in, but also to communal situations, you know, working on a puzzle, that idea of people coming together towards a goal or towards an end. And I wonder if you can, is there anything more you want to say about this work in particular, which is really, the yellow in it is really striking in person. And I love that idea of I was recently working on a puzzle and one piece was missing. And you would just sort of, you're always like fixating on that one piece that's missing. But if you want to speak to that piece that's missing and what's looking back at us through that missing piece.
I would say maybe what I can still say about this painting is, yeah, the fact that I just shaped yeah, that there's those ears that are like pieces of the pieces. I don't know how to say that. Yeah, the fact that an ear is a shape that is necessary to connect with another piece. And yeah, there's this missing piece. And it's replaced again. It's, yeah, working together to feel a kind of whole or a missing part. There's a bit the same idea of the other green paintings, that it's, yeah, this idea of caring and working or interacting together to feel something. Yeah.
In the works, sort of overall, there's sort of this layered tenderness and warmth that comes from the exploration of the wood and the colors, but also this uncertainty, this element of kind of mystery, you know, what's behind the door, what's behind the wall, what's within the frame, what's out of the frame, what's beyond the frame. And I wonder if you could talk a bit about the intention behind the fragmentation of the body and the anonymity component of that, because while you know where each of these body parts come from, your audience doesn't. And what does that serve in the work or for you as an artist?
So yeah, it's true that I know, and people obviously they would not recognize that the pieces are, the body parts are the same, and you should be really a good observer to see that. I don't know. It's yeah, there's always this play of healing and revealing. And I think I'm also a bit like this personally. But yeah, when we were having this discussion, I was saying that I think that every artist in a way is speaking about himself. We are speaking about ourselves in a way, whether it's be through concerns we have or representation, or I don't know. But I'm not sure I really answered your question.
No, I think you did. I guess my question and what I would press further on is what you feel, how you feel the fragmentation sort of gets at those concerns or readdresses or revisualizes them.
Yeah. I don't know. It's true that a body part like a nose lurking from a black hole is really yeah, it's a type of probably maybe even cartoonish kind of way of depicting stuff I'm using, but I think that body parts are sometimes character in themselves. Yeah, I use them to say different type of things. As I was saying, like hands could be, are more used to speak about tenderness or links in between people. And nose are probably more mysterious, but they are like big characters themselves, because a nose is really something that you have in the middle of your face, and it's really how could I say? Yeah, an identity. Yeah.
Yeah, so they sort of become characters in their own right, even
Yeah.
if they're not unified.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like they speak to an unknowable quality to the works. When you're walking around, you're sort of like, there is this mystery to them and something to be discovered, which is recalled throughout the various thematics in your paintings. And I wonder if maybe that's related to my next question, which is how you landed upon the title of dovetailing, or the idea of joinery, or that term, and whether that plays into those themes as well, and how you thought about that.
Yeah. So I know, I think that dovetail is used as an expression also in English, no?
Dovetailing, yeah, it is. Mm-hmm.
But I really like the fact that dovetail is also a technique, wooden joint technique, that is used to connect wood pieces, and without using screws or other materials. It's only two pieces of wood that are cut in one way to fit together. And it's also, as a verb, is also, it means to skillfully form a whole and to fit together. And this is what I read, in an aesthetically pleasing manner and connect strongly. And yeah, I think there was all this, again, those ideas that, fitting together, but as a piece of wood or in between people. It was for me like the perfect word to speak about material, but also human connections. And that's why I chose the title. And also, I think it's this idea of dovetail is in 3 or 4 paintings. So yeah, for me it was a word that would speak about the whole process also.
I ended the slideshow with this slide of "But They Fly," which is in the back of the exhibition at Margot Samel.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you could speak a bit about this work in particular, the story of it and what went into it in terms of its creation.
So this, maybe I would say, it was a big gymnastic of my spirit. But because in those marble that are, it's a trompe-l'œil of two, how would I say, pieces of marble that are, it's a big piece cut in two and just reassembled. And this is named a butterfly marble. So, and there's also this idea of Rorschach test, I think, in this painting, because this piece of marble that is cut in two and reassembled is now a body. You can see the body of a woman probably. And I really wanted to add something on the painting, and I decided, but it's going to be a trompe-l'œil, and there's going to be butterflies on it because this is a butterfly marble. And that's where I come from, where this idea come from. And then yeah, because I find my ideas, sometimes it's really some flash I have, and I'm thinking, oh, I could do a butterfly with ears and nose, and there's even the third one. Not a lot of people could see that, but it's two butts. So yeah, it's a butterfly. And so this is why there's all those circles that are coming and mirroring themselves. And yeah, this was a bit the idea of this painting.
I love our friend GE just wrote in the chat, flight and marble, such power in that. And it is true that it's interesting the use of marble both as a weighted material that's so heavy with such heft, but then to have it be thematically linked with this idea of flight and with the freeing aspect of that. And of course, I love the title and the way it plays with the idea of the butterfly as well, but they fly, but butterfly. So it's really, and it's interesting, its positioning in the show at the back, sort of after you've moved through the rest of the works, you're sort of left with this one near between the two mural pieces with their hands connected. I have two more questions for you. One has to do with framings. So many of your works use the canvas as a frame or become framing devices for architectural aspects of the spaces that they're in. This one is a perfect example in Dovetail. How do you think about the interior and the exterior of a frame? And does it relate to how you think about the interior and the exterior of the spaces that you work in and of spaces of power in life?
Yeah, I think I'm just depicting new spaces, and maybe it's just like portals to new, I don't know, from things that I think and come from my brain. But I really like this idea of maybe creating a new space, like depicting a window with when you can see clouds, and or a fake door that is potentially open but not. Yeah, I think I like this idea of creating a new space.
When you have created spaces, both, you know, physically through the artwork, but then also socially through collaborations with other artists, through performances and various things. There has been an ongoing investigation of creating spaces for dialogue, for conversation, for contemplation. And so I wonder maybe if we can end on trompe l'oeil as well as humor in your work. What role do you feel humor plays in both relating to your audience as well as to creating those critical connections that are really inherent to your practice as an artist and as a person?
Yeah, I think humor is really, really important. I tried to put a lot of humor in my work. But it's not always easy to be funny, I think. And but maybe could you just repeat the question?
Yeah. What do you feel? Do you feel humor enhances those connections with your audience? Like, what role do you feel humor plays in the process of making the work? But you know, I'm sure there's a lot of humor in your studio, but also, you know, in the process of after the works are hung and you're in dialogue with others about them, the role of humor in that.
The role of humor. Well, I think that for sure humor connects people, and I don't know.
Why not humor?
Yeah, why not? But it's also a way to maybe, yeah, deconstruct and reconstruct something, like to make fun of something that was maybe not funny before. Also for the caryatids, yeah, that some caryatids are quite funny because, yeah, I add, but it's just funny because I put hairs under their arms, or which is not really funny to have hairs under arms, but in this maybe quite elegant arch that is well painted, and then suddenly there's like hairs. Yeah, that's the kind of, I don't know if it's really humor, but it's also really human, and yeah, that's it.
Amazing. Well, I'm really, really honored to be in conversation with you about all of these incredible works. And thank you again for this. I know we have a few really great questions from the audience, so I want to give them time to ask you some things as well.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you, Chloe. That was a really beautiful conversation. We do have some questions from the audience. I would like to start with our friend GE. GE, you should be able to unmute.
Thank you, Eleanor. Chloe, thank you. Wonderful conversation. And thank you for this introduction to Sarah's work. My question is, can you talk a little bit about detachment? The sort of the means of disconnecting from things that are maybe of less importance in order to accomplish the heights of what you can really do as an artist to achieve bigger, you know, almost these monumental architectural kind of renderings and things?
I'm not sure I really understood everything.
Well, I guess I'm really just asking, it seemed as though that you have a sort of playful aspect of detachment,
Yeah.
which so you can draw back, get rid of the stuff you don't need, and then because of that, then take it forward and create something that's much more focused and dynamic like that, which seems to be what you're doing here. And maybe you could talk about maybe how you came upon that as a practice, or if it's just innate, or whatever it might be.
I think the fact that I did this school also in Brussels, who teach trompe-l'œil technique and decorative painting, really gave me also much more skills and for representation. And I'm not really interested in hyper-realism, but trompe-l'œil, I think it's a bit different because it's also, the word is like, in French, tromper is to cheat, but yeah, maybe, I don't know how we say it in English, if someone can...
Or to trick, perhaps, or
trick. Yes, to trick someone. And so I don't know, it yeah, it allowed me all those trompe-l'œil techniques and everything I learned in the school. It really allows me to depict yeah, those interiors and those structures, and yeah, I can just play with that to depict yeah, new spaces in the existent space. But I don't know if I really...
Oh no, you did. I really, I get that. I really do, and I love this trumpet as a way of using that as a technique to also then enhance attachment and take this thing forward. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, GE, for your question. I know we do also have a question from Margot Samel. Margot, you should be able to unmute.
Okay, can you hear me? Thank you so much, Sarah and Chloe and Eleanor. Sarah, I have a quick question about going back to murals specifically in your work. Oftentimes they are the last thing that happen in the context of an exhibition, and most of the time the rest of the works are already up on the wall. And do you see the murals kind of function as almost like a dovetail and like tying the show together? Or do you see them more as an opportunity to bring something new to the table, perhaps something that you can communicate in your paintings or curtains? I mean, obviously, it really depends on the show as well. Sometimes, like the show you did with Kiki Kogelnik, all you made was murals, and kind of it was like her physical works, and you kind of tying the show together with the murals around her works. But yeah.
Yes. So, well, first I was just only doing murals because I was working for other artists and I didn't have much time to have time at the studio. So I was always painting directly on spaces. And so now I think I don't want to use murals as only a scenery for the scenography for the paintings, the canvases. So yeah, I try to have them work together, but not be completely dependent on each other. And also I think sometimes they bring maybe another idea, or I was thinking maybe in Dovetail I could paint an arch around the painting, but I thought there's no sense in doing that. And I like that there's a kind of conversation in between murals and canvases. Yeah.
Sweet. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that question, Margot. And thank you, Sarah. I have a question I'd love to ask you, Sarah. Your work is, even though it's a lot of, painting, it feels so kind of multidisciplinary and feels almost sculptural, and it's just so textured, which I love. It's amazing. So I was wondering if you could kind of speak to the different artists of different mediums who may have like influenced your work or your practice.
Yes. But I was always drawn to those trompe-l'œil techniques. So there's a lot of in the medieval paintings or Flemish primitive. I always love to see that, and but also in more contemporary art, there's different artists who also work with that. Well, for example, Richard Artrager I was really into, because also with the sometimes it's a real material, but he used some materials that are really recognizable. The wood is really really colorful, and you can see veins and whatever. But it's not the only reason I like his works, but aesthetically maybe I would say. I don't know, there's also this artist that I really love her work, is Lucy Mackenzie. She also did the school in Brussels, and she's using a lot and speaking a lot about it also. I don't know, I love a lot of different artists, but it's always hard to say like which ones, but yeah.
Oh, thank you. If anybody has any last questions, you can throw it in the chat or raise your hand. But August, you should be able to unmute now.
Hi. Congratulations, Sarah. Huge fan. I just wanted to kind of piggyback onto some of the other questions I've been going, but I'm curious if, Sarah, what your relationship is between, you paint a lot things in specific detail, noses, ears, and there's obviously a ton of specific detail between the faux finishings. And if you find that as a parallel, or does that come in kind of like as Schwartz was, Schwartz was asking of like, how much you think about that, and as much as the things that you're painting kind of create supports for each other, and they also seem like they're kind of scrutinized to great detail. And I see it kind of as a radical kind of tongue in cheek to social structures. I'm curious, you know, how much you think that's just naturally there, because to me, those seems like they kind of parallel themselves, or do you just think of it as you just, you know, you do as you do, and, you know, the poetry of parallels kind of just creates from, you know, your gesture?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand everything.
I guess more is just how much do you think about focusing on details creates this bigger picture in a similar way to the details with making, you know, the veins and lines in a wood or a marble kind of parallel, just highlighting a nose or an ear, and you know, maybe the outside gaze looking at something to have a, you know, an overall composition. Because when I look at your work, I kind of feel like there's these elements that all build up to homogenize into an idea. And I'm curious if those are things that you're very active of thinking about, or, you know, it's also just, it comes just natural.
I I think I'm so sorry. I'm I'm not sure I really understood everything.
I guess that's maybe a thing that I see in your work a lot, and I am very fascinated by it, and I think there is a lot of great importance in your details, and I think it, as much as you're kind of talking about the, you know, the care behind the, you know, motives within your work, it almost seems like the scrutiny and the detail might be as much thing as you're trying to suggest within your works as anything.
Yeah. I'm so sorry. I understand.
No, it's okay. I was maybe a bit too wordy. I'm comparing a lot of different things that are happening within your process.
Yeah. I put a lot of attention to those details, whether it's the material I depict, or the idea I want to give with those body parts. I'm really, I think details are really important when you want to communicate an idea, and I try to be as much precise as I can be. Yeah.
Would that be maybe why you choose to, you know, do full finishings as well? Because there is an element of detail that, you know, not every little line within a vein of wood or a vein of marble allude to marble or wood, but when you do these things, then a greater image kind of becomes aware, and the trompe l'oeil, the trick happens.
Yeah, the trick happens in the faux finishing, but also sometimes I use the faux finishing to again trick the eye and put new body details in the material I'm depicting. Like ears. I did some ears in hearts of wood. not sure I was.
It makes perfect sense.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, August. That was a really great question. We do at the Rail have a tradition of ending our community events with a poetry reading. And I am really, really excited to welcome Ariel Yelen to the stage. Ariel's poems have been published in Poetry Magazine, Bomb, the American Poetry Review, and elsewhere. She's the associate editor for the NYC-based publishing collaborative Future Poem Books and is also the founding editor of their digital space Future Feed. She's taught classes on poetry for Rutgers Mason Gross School of the Arts, the Loft Literary Center, and Mana Contemporary, and lives in Brooklyn. Thank you for being here today, Sarah. Please bless us with your poetry.
Thank you. I wish I was the funding editor, but I am, alas, the founding. Thank you for that talk, Sarah and Chloe. That was really interesting. And I think it's fitting that I also picked two poems, one of which also features hands as a main character. And it's kind of spooky in the spirit of October. Hi, Eros. Okay. Just two poems. The Small Picture. And thank you, Carolyn, for asking me to read, by the way. The Small Picture. There once was a person who could only see the small picture. Even when they breastfed as a baby, all they saw is breast. All they heard is mother's voice. Now, as they walk through the park, their friend exclaims, "It's a beautiful day." But all they see is their dear friend's face soften into a smile. When this person has sex, they see only a wilderness of hair. When others allude to their wealth, flaunt their clothes or properties, all this person sees is pixelated fuzz dangling off a cashmere sweater, the cement bottom of a saltwater pool, the sharp edge of the Kelly Green logo on a website meant for banking. And this is the last poem called An Indiscriminate Pursuit. A woman wakes up to find her hands levitating ever so slightly out in front of her body, hovering over her thighs. On the train, people look at her strange, then turn away, then look again to see if she's still holding her arms and hands in such a way. An elderly woman offers her a seat. At work, no one comments on her new posture. References to the body are discouraged at the office. In the elevator, her colleague gently asks if she's feeling okay. Yes, you? At a friend's apartment that evening, she arrives in the same hands forward position, which her friends take to mean she's greeting them with a hug. They hug, but her hands continue to reach. Do you want a drink? Hungry? They ask. But what is meant to happen after they all embrace, after she declines both drink and food? She fears what her levitating hands will reveal, but doesn't know how to lower them. One of the friends shakes her left hand. How do you do? They joke. When nothing changes, the other friend shakes both of her hands, but only nervous laughter follows. When her lover arrives, the friends call him into the living room with urgency, and when he notices her slightly outstretched hands, he bends down, kisses each of them, then looks up and asks, "What's happening?" She walks out of sight and into the kitchen where her hands open and close to find meaning. They close mechanically around a banana, squeezing until it pushes out of its case. What is this urge to destroy fruit? She grabs a pencil out of the coffee tin on the windowsill to write down what she's having trouble expressing, but snaps the pencil in two before she can find paper. Whatever worlds the act of writing made possible are suddenly no longer possible. Her lover finds her in the kitchen. "What's happening?" he asks. With her slightly outstretched hands, she grabs onto his torso out of fear. He screams in pain and falls to the floor. What is she to do with her strong and outstretched hands? And what is a person searching for as they go on to crush the bananas and bones of those they love? Thank you.
Thank you, Ariel. Those were some really lovely poems. It's been a really lovely afternoon. So thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you again to Sarah and Chloe. And we'd also like to thank Margot from Margot Samel Gallery for helping to make today's event possible. We'd also like to thank the Terra Foundation for sponsoring our NSE program and making these daily conversations possible, and for their support of our growing archive, which you can view on the Rail's YouTube channel. And for the past 22 years, the Rail has provided a platform for arts, culture, and politics through our monthly publication and public events. So please check the chat for a link to donate to support our operations here at the Rail. And join us tomorrow at 1 p.m. for a conversation with a group of this month's critics page contributors to discuss their first encounters with Marcel Duchamp and his work. We will conclude with a poetry reading by Evan Gill Smith, and everyone can now turn on their microphones and say hello and goodbye as you leave. Thank you for being here today. And have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Thank you
Thanks for having us.
Sarah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much. Have an amazing rest of your day and go see the show on until December 3rd at Margot Samel in New York.